Hello, Bentendo here. I'm a clinical psychologist in Las Vegas, and I'm a hardcore Nintendo fan. And I've been thinking a lot about the idea of present and staying in the now. I'm a big follower, big fan of Eckhart Tolle's teachings about the power of now. And if you've ever read his book, The Power of Now, or he has another great one called Practicing the Power of Now, then you'll understand a little bit about what I'm talking about. I highly recommend that you read his work or even just watch his videos on YouTube. And basically what he teaches, in my understanding, is that it's very important to stay in the now, because our minds and our thoughts lead us to all kinds of places, thinking about the past, regrets about the past, what I wish I would have done differently in the past, or what I hope will happen in the future. Or even if we're in the moment, somehow we're not actually connected to what's actually happening here and now in this moment. And what he teaches, which has really changed my life, is that all of life is a challenge, and it's the best way to cope with life is to treat it as a meditation, where in meditation, if you've ever taken a meditation class, they'll tell you to deliberately sit and focus on your breath. And focus only on your breath, and when your thoughts go elsewhere, always bring them back to the breath. And really, as Eckhart Tolle teaches it, it actually applies to not just the breath, but to everything that's happening physically inside your body at any given moment. So rather than getting into your thoughts and thinking, recognize that your thoughts are just kind of fleeting forms that rise and fall, and don't put so much meaning into them. Don't get caught up in them. That's really what he teaches. And the reality of life is really in our bodies, in our breath, and in the physical feelings in our inner bodies. And so when we meditate, we deliberately ignore our thoughts. We don't try to fight them. We just detach from them. We just kind of look at what's happening all around us, but we put the majority of our attention on our bodies and on our breath and what's actually happening in any given moment. So I've been thinking about how this can be practiced while playing a video game. And recently I've been playing The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, which is probably one of my favorite video games of all time. I think in some ways I actually love it even more than the follow-up games of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which were also very amazing. But Skyward Sword is really special in a lot of ways because it was developed out of... Nintendo often develops their games out of a certain type of gameplay, so they develop a new technology. And so the Skyward Sword refers to you hold the controller up in the air, and then the system actually can detect the movements of your arms. So the game is really designed to a large extent around the ability to move the controller up in the air and from side to side and up and down and diagonal and this way and that way. And so it was a very new technology when it was developed just a few years ago, which was different than just holding the controller and pushing a button, right? So there's this motion control, and it's much more attuned to your specific movements. And the mechanic for the game is actually highly attuned to how you move the controller, whether you turn it from side to side and so on. So one thing I love about playing Skyward Sword is that it really does force you to be very present to what's happening, because a lot of the enemies in the game, you can't just go up to them with your sword and just swing your sword and kill them, right? It's not that simple. Oftentimes, whether it's one of the plants that has the mouth open, they'll open either horizontally or diagonally. I'm sorry, horizontally or what's it called? I'm sorry, having a word lapse. So it'll either go up and down or side to side, and then you have to swing your sword in that direction. And then a lot of the bosses and the enemies, you'll have to, they'll change the way they hold their swords. So they'll hold it this way, so you can only hit from a certain angle. And what that forces you to do in that moment of battle is to be very aware of who you're fighting and how they're holding, what angles they're offering you. And then you have to adjust very quickly in that moment. So when you're playing Skyward Sword, especially when you're in kind of one of those battle scenes where you have to think about exactly what direction to swing your sword in, you really can't get into your head. You have to be in your body. You have to be, your eyes, your eye-hand coordination has to be very focused on what's happening right there on the screen. So it really absorbs you, and it really helps you to be in the moment. So I find it to be a really effective way to stay in the moment and to not be thinking, to not focus on even what's going to happen next in the game, right? You're just in the eye of the tiger. You're in the thrill of the fight. And it can be really challenging when you're first learning it. But then once you get good at it, you get kind of hooked on it, and it gets really fun. And then what I find is, after I've been playing Skyward Sword for a while, in my actual life, I'm a lot more attuned to what's going on around me in any given moment. And so whether I'm, driving to work, or working with a patient, or writing a report, or, going to the gym, or whatever it is that I'm doing, it makes it a little bit easier for me to be in that moment and completely in that moment. Now, obviously, it's a constant battle, and this is what Eckhart Tolle talks about, is that you can't expect that just because you're deliberately focusing on your breath and your body, that all of a sudden your mind's going to stop thinking. But, we're always going to get kind of caught up in our thoughts. But the idea is that as you practice being mindful of your breath and your body, and deliberately detaching from your thoughts, over time it gets easier and easier to detach from them and to stay focused and connected on the moment into your body. So I love Skyward Sword. I'm really enjoying it. I'm about 30 or 40 hours into it, and it's really rewarding. And then when you get to one of those cutscenes where you finally accomplish something, it's very mythological and exciting, and it's an amazing story, actually, in addition to amazing gameplay. And it really encapsulates all the things that Joseph Campbell described in his work about the hero's journey and a hero with 1,000 faces and the power of myth. So I highly recommend it. You can download it currently on the Nintendo Switch. It's a super fun game. Hope you have a beautiful day. Have some fun today. And remember to stay in the moment. Your thoughts are just kind of like dreams, illusions. They don't need to be taken too seriously. Our thoughts sometimes are the thing that really get in the way. So don't get caught up in your thoughts. Stay in the moment. Enjoy your day. Have fun. And remember that you are loved. All right? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.